Hey,
I am fine.
are we excited for the webinar then?
Is it my turn? Yeah, my name is Laura Jones, and I actually have an organization called Veterans Action Resource Group. I'm joining you from Frederick, Maryland, the home of Fort Detrick.
How lovely we have people from all across the world then. I'm looking forward to seeing whatever your insights are out of this webinar as well. We're very excited to have you. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Laura.
Thank you.
And we have Anita from Nigeria. Everybody, please put down the cities and countries you're joining in from. People from Kenya joining in, Ghana, Kenya again. South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Italy as well. Lovely. So we are 33 people strong now. So waiting for a few more to join in. South Africa as well. Okay, I see we are 40 people strong. Hello, everybody. My name is Ritvi. We're just waiting for a few more minutes. But in the meantime, I would love to know where you're joining us from, which country. I see a lot of people from South Africa. We have Robert from Rwanda as well, Rain from Ghana, Aziza from Nigeria. Let's just wait for about 3 more minutes and then we can get started. Miriam from Nigeria has also joined us. Lorna from Kenya. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We have a few people from India as well. Welcome, Rishabh. Okay, I think that we can let people keep adding in. Hello, Hamdani from Ghana. We can start with the poll at least. On your screens would be a poll right now. I would love to know, for the benefit of our panelists, how much AI you're using at this point in your businesses, in your companies, be it if you're heavily embedded AI into your business or just starting out. It would be a great insight for our panelists here so that we can cater the conversation specifically according to you. And if it doesn't show in your screen, please go to those three small dots at the base of your phone and just go to tools and it will be there. Okay, our poll is live. Everybody, please vote at the stage you are at right now, integrating AI into your businesses, just to cater everything onto for our panelists. I see a lot of us have used AI for specific tasks, and a few are trying to incorporate it as well. I see 47 people in the room, but not all of them have voted. I would love for you to vote. This is very crucial so that we can cater the webinar for you. It will be lovely to hear your thoughts on this as well. Okay, I believe that we can now get started. This is for the benefit of the panelists. We have most people in this room have used AI for specific tasks in their businesses, and then we come at people who are exploring but are not consistent yet, and also people who have embedded AI into their businesses quite heavily. So we have a very good mix of people here. So the conversation would have to span across a lot of different factors. But I think that is why we have these experts on the panel. I think that we can get started now. So hello, everybody. My name is Ritvi. I am a associate at Cloudplexo and your moderator for today. I am an Imperial alumna, and I've been working with companies quite closely, be it state startups or enterprises, to help them scale across a lot of different factors, be it across innovation teams, giving hands-on perspective around emerging technologies or AI and deployment. And a little bit more about the company that I'm working for as well. I work for Cloudplexo, which is a global native and AI company. We have been working with AWS as an advanced consulting and technology partners for about 5 years now. And we have been supporting high growth startups in this time duration across Africa and Europe. I am joining in from the UK, which is the headquarter of the company, and we have offices across the world, from places that all of you are in as well, be it Nigeria, Kenya, SA, and Ghana. So I'm very excited to be here, and thank you so much for joining in. We host a lot of these events from time to time just so that we can help people and businesses make the most of our technical capabilities. Um, and as we know that, why we are all here today, right? We're here to talk about agentic AI and enterprise automation. We realize that there's been a sort of a change, right? There's been a change in the era of using AI because we realize that everybody is using AI now. And that is not enough. Simply using AI is not enough because it does not match with the speed and the level of modernization you have to match in enterprises nowadays. Which is why this conversation is very important, not only to run with the times, but also to make sure that you are staying competitive in your respective fields, which is why we see a lot of enterprises from across the industries and across scales. Um, and of course, to champion this conversation, this very crucial conversation, we have added in experts who work in this field, have been working in this field for the longest time now. And our expert panel today has two panelists. The first one being Timothy, who is a fractional CIO and CTO with 20 plus years of leading digital transformation across Africa. He has delivered 100 plus AI, data, cloud, and cybersecurity initiatives for high growth startups and impact organizations, and specializes in scaling mobile first products, cross border payments, and data platforms. He also advises founders and boards on tech strategy, scale up, and measurable impact. A second panelist is Roop, who is a tech career entrepreneur. He has had multiple ventures, be it in edtech, adtech, martech, and even two consulting firms in digital and marketing strategy. He is a PhD in AI from LSE and is an AI researcher and angel investor. He also is a startup advisor as well as a public speaker. Because of his background in AI, he has been helping growth focused actionable AI strategies using a proprietary research based AI scorecard, which is very interesting. And he also adds into teams as a chief AI officer to help them execute and differentiate AI hype from real near-term opportunity. So how are we doing today, Roop and Timothy? I hope we're all geared up for the day.
Not great. Thanks for the lovely introduction, Ritvik.
Lovely. And what about you, Timothy?
Really excited. Looking forward to.
Lovely. I think then let's just get right into it, right? Because we have all of these amazing minds here and we have all of the conversation that we can do. So the very first question here is for both of you, really. And I think that the best way I want to start is by breaking the myth, right? So what do you believe is the most misunderstood assumption that enterprise still make about AI adoption in 2026? We can start with any one of you, please.
Timothy, why don't you go first?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much, Ru. So, from where I'm sitting or standing, as they say, there's this perception that is still going on that AI is a bubble. This is one big one. We still have this misunderstanding going on that enterprises are waiting for the bubble to burst. And once the bubble has bursted, then they can start to think about building those capabilities, which is pretty wrong, right? The internet was a bubble at some point. The mobile, discussion around mobile apps, that was a bubble at some point, right? And so we've gone through those phases. Cloud, when initially it first was introduced in the tech scene, everybody was skeptical. Everybody was like, no, man, let's wait it out. But now every institution, as part of digital transformation, is actually leveraging the cloud, right? So this conversation of why AI is a bubble today that I hear around enterprise, that's a big misunderstood assumption.
very interesting. Something that I'd like to add to what Timothy has said is a lot of enterprises are approaching AI from almost an exclusive cost arbitrage point of view, right? We've seen how that story plays out. 50 years ago, we decided to ship some roles across to emerging countries, and then about 30 years ago, we went, okay, there's a bunch of people in India that can speak a bit of English. Let's send some more roles there. And now we're talking about AI agents taking on, now it's like $2 an hour instead of $20 an hour or $50 an hour. But I think the opportunity that we're starting to see, and I think that's what Timothy was alluding to, is this is so much bigger than that. This is about fundamental reimagining of what's possible, not just at an enterprise level, but it starts at the individual, right? It's that transition of going from, thinking of capability as what can I do, to the question changing to what's possible, and that within an organization as well, because you're a collection of individuals. What can my team do to what's possible? And what's possible is an order of magnitude, and over time will be several orders of magnitude more. So it's about reimagining that, and that is the real opportunity. But it's our job, I think, as business leaders to communicate that to enterprise.
Very, very interesting points. And I definitely see that this is a very good start to the conversation. On to my next question. I do think somewhere or the other, both of you have touched on this, but from your perspective of working in multiple companies, as well as impact organizations for you, Timothy, as well as Roop, what is fundamentally broken about how most companies are approaching automation today?
I'll have a stab at this, Timothy, just so that we're not speaking over each other. I think the opportunity with AI is not a simple remapping of existing workflows and and slapping automation on top of it with a bit of intelligence thrown in. I think the opportunity is to reimagine the workflow itself. There is a lot of talk about what constitutes AI native, right? And it's AI native operationally could be that, okay, you want to start building an application that uses agents, uses language models in an interesting manner. But that is purely the technical answer to that question. AI native starts from imagining workflows that look at what we want to achieve, because you're at point A, you want to get to point B. You might have needed 20 steps to get there in your current workflow, but do you need all of those 20 steps? It's about the efficiency is not necessarily about getting rid of people. Efficiency is about collapsing workflows into 1, 2, or 3 step functions that then you build AI native solutions around. So to me, automation is about reimagining workflows rather than simply replicating that with existing agents and so forth.
So, thank you, Roop. I'll sort of build on to that. The other thing, and I think Roop has sort of alluded to it a little bit in terms of thinking of automation as a way to replace the people we have. So we have 1,000 staff. We want to cut costs, and the board is asking for ROI. We want to maximize, investor value in this business, and so therefore the quickest and the fastest way to do that, if we are not realizing profit growth and opportunities in that regard, is essentially to cut the biggest cost in the business, which is payroll, right? The number of people who are actually working there. And so businesses are looking at this in terms of, if we do automate, we are going to cut down our workforce by 25%. That's amazing, because if you look at it in terms of headcount, that cost is going to go down. And so therefore now we are able to capture more value, down in the balance sheet, and then be able to pass that on to our shareholders. While that might look attractive in the short term, in the longer term, that's actually a mistake because you haven't prepared the organization enough through the thinking around automation to be able to think about whether the worker that is being replaced is actually going to add value. Like the automation that is being brought in-house is essentially going to generate the same value or probably compound that value, magnitudes more for that particular worker. We haven't experimented that long enough to be able to justify that decision, right? The truth is, we need to be thinking about AI augmentation in that regard, not automation the way we are thinking about it today as a replacement of workers, but more how can we rejig the roles of the people that we have in the organization to be able to compound that value with automation coming into the picture. And so it's more about augmentation and less about the talk around automation, right? And I think that's where most enterprises are taking this in the wrong direction, because when they say automation, they're automatically thinking, oh, wow, exciting, 30% of my workforce is going to be chopped. I'm going to take all that, push it through downstream to, shareholder value, and then we're going to make more money at the end of the year. But that's not really the truth. And I feel like that's where the conversation needs to go.
I'd strongly resonate with what Timothy just said. Just to jump in very quickly, Rithvi, is this notion of augmentation is a crucial one. That we can all do more and be more, not just as individuals, but as organizations. So AI represents a step change in our potential to grow, rather than this reductive, short-term myopia that often leaders get stuck in. So brilliant point there, Timothy.
Very interesting. So it's not really about what you're replicating or what you're filling the gaps in for, rather how you're using it and how it's adding value or reducing the repetitiveness of it all. I think that is a very important point. And this begs the question of when business leaders say that we're already using AI, what are they generally overestimating or what are they underestimating? Where does that gap occur?
Rupert, you understand?
Oh, sure. Okay. So I think it's like everyone's right and everyone's wrong all at the same time. Because I'm using AI as such a broad thing. AI is a very broad umbrella, right? A lot of us, and even within that, even if you think about modern conversational large language model-led AI, even within that, there are different ways in which usage looks, right? I mean, some people, at individual levels are probably using it for simple things, might be summarizing a meeting like this one, right? Or, getting some ideas for an essay if it's a student somewhere. But already using AI is too broad and not granular enough. The levels of sophistication, it's almost like, we all know this, in the 80s, I think it came out, this entire notion of software capability maturity models, right? CMM and different services companies would go, or we are CMM level 3, level 4, level 5. I think we're getting into that reality gradually, because this is an evolving piece, right? The stuff that we're talking about is still being invented as we speak. This is not the API economy where you have a settled underlying framework. You can plug something in, and what you expect is what you get out. This entire thing is being invented as we speak. So the entire notion for organizations is understanding what aspects of usage would benefit them the most today, and where they would like to get to, so that they can sort of ride this journey. So we're using AI is just an opening for a much, much deeper conversation. Are you just using Microsoft Copilot for meeting summaries, or is there a bigger vision to this?
Totally agree. Just sort of to build on top of that, let's talk about the overestimation. I meet enterprise leaders, and They tell me, oh yeah, we are using this tool and that tool and that tool. And so it's a conversation around tools and not necessarily a conversation around, are we ready? Have we built the infrastructure? Have we prepared our people? Do we have the right skill set? What problems are we solving as a business that when we're leveraging AI is going to compound? Like a lot of those conversations haven't even happened yet. And so that's where I believe they're overestimating. They're overestimating that the fact that we've implemented this one particular tool, that's it. Now we are suddenly AI ready, which to me is like, no, you're not. You're far from it because you haven't built the foundation yet to even start to leverage those tools, and you're already using those tools, right? And so that's where the overestimation for me is kind of looking like underestimation, the readiness aspect of it. And I want to have conversations with leaders. One, because they don't understand what it is, and so they don't know what readiness actually means. So there's a bit of that gap there, and I don't necessarily 100% blame leaders in today enterprise environments having that conversation around readiness and what that actually means. But leadership is about having to ask the difficult questions and asking yourself and the team, where do we need to be in a couple of years? What do we need to do today? This tech that I do not understand, how can we navigate and understand it better? How can we get ready as an institution? What do we need to be able to do, right? So AI success is not about tools. AI success is not a technology problem, right? AI success is actually a leadership problem. And so the whole conversation around where we are already using AI should have started with a conversation of whether we are actually ready to start to use AI. And a lot of that essentially means, what's the structure of leadership looking like within those organizations? How do they make decisions, right? Do they have a single source of truth for the critical data that, again, AI will be leveraging to be able to make a lot of those decisions that they need? Do they have the architecture designed for scaling and not necessarily just to do POCs and demos, right? Are the leaders in our organization, do they understand what not to automate? It's easy to have the conversation around, we want to automate this process. For me, it's always about, what should we not be automating? Because I feel like that's where the value is. Because eventually what happens is that you start automating everything where you shouldn't even be thinking about automation, right? So those conversations are leadership conversations. Those are not tool conversations. And a lot of the time, leaders are spending way more time deciding which tool, what to automate, and not necessarily thinking about the leadership problems, the underlying foundation that is required for those organizations, the things they need to do better, how to orchestrate, how to align, who makes the decision, why should they make that decision, and the implication of having to bring in AI to be able to now drive the business value that they're looking at. And that's where they are underestimating the conversation around readiness and overestimating around the tools. So those are the two areas I'm seeing where there's a bit of a gap.
That's super interesting. Since you bring up readiness, and I think Ritvi, you and I were having a conversation, in one of our earlier chats. Uh, you know, uh, when I started talking to organizations around sort of, AI enablement and some decision making, I ended up spending some time building an external fitness and an internal readiness framework, with some research around it and some indices and all of that, so that it's kind of has the depth and robustness that you expect. But it's that entire point that Timothy, you were making, that having a very clear decomposable view of where your internal readiness sits. So I've, in the framework that I've built, you reduce it down to a single score, on a 0 to 1, and then you decompose it down to different components that drive that score. Similarly for an external fitness piece, and then you combine it to think about ROI likelihoods and your overall scorecard and things like that. So yeah, it's fascinating that you brought up readiness.
I think that is a very good segue actually to my next question. But I did notice, Timothy, you mentioned what should companies not automate, which I will not let go of. I will pick that up in the next question, uh, because that is a very interesting thing to talk about. But Roop, given that we're talking around research, right? This begs the question that, of course, we always know that there are gaps between what is theoretically right and what is implementable, right? So in terms of AI, right, where does academic AI research still diverge from the enterprise reality of things? And, why does that gap persist? And are there any ways to fill this gap in for these enterprises?
I think the goals are different.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the research, some of the research that I'm involved in, and plus, across universities globally, a lot of the research is around figuring out uh, sort of more fundamental, below the hood kind of issues when it comes to artificial intelligence, right? Uh, Things that aren't necessarily boxable in a little packaged up thing that you go off and then sell, but those are often ingredient problems that need solving, that ultimately bubble up to the surface into a more refined solution across an organization that might combine multiple problems solution pieces from research to build something that's more unified. So I don't think this is necessarily a question of um, whether research can bridge that gap into practice. There's certainly some research that is very industry adjacent, and practice people like me, when I'm in research, I tend to pick problems that are a lot more industry adjacent. But there are deep AI researchers that have been doing this for 20 years. They're often solving more fundamental problems. If you think of knowledge as this edifice with like a wall of bricks, they're sort of further down in that edifice where they're picking one problem at a time that keeps the wall stable, whereas I might be at the top part of that edifice, building something that becomes eventually more visible to industry and more usable more directly. But all of that sort of moves the needle. It's the perception of speed that industry has because they have shareholders and so on, that creates that sense of gap. But that gap is a necessary and a useful one.
Okay, I think that through that gap, you also cover a wider stance of what is possible, which is very interesting. And Timothy, in a similar line, because you have been a CIO, CTO of multiple companies and also worked on a lot of projects, what are the biggest risks that these enterprises are facing when they adopt AI without a clear orchestration in terms of the government layers, as well as what are the things that they should not be doing during the process?
Good question. I love that question because it really does speak to the need of the moment or the day or the year of today, right? 2026, 2025, 2024, we've watched the tools evolve, they become better. Any tool that was launched 3 years ago is probably magnitudes better today than it was before, right? The complexity that brings in an organization that is not thinking about governance, for example, or just clear orchestration layer on top of implementation would be, let's take, for example, an organization that is a bank, right? What happens if data leaks? Customer data and their bank accounts and things like that essentially ends up in the LLM domain. And when someone else is prompting in another part of the world, they get data that is related to a bank with some names exposed, for example. That's huge in terms of the risk that that bank just suddenly opened up, right? We're thinking about hallucinations in healthcare, right? You're implementing AI in the medical space, and the AI decides that this patient is suffering from cancer instead of something else, and you start, treating that patient for cancer instead of what actually that is, right? That's not an implementation, but implication of hallucinated outputs, for example. That's a big one, right? Risks start to surface when governance is not in that picture. The other thing as well would be, if you think about the different departments in an organization, you're thinking about finance, operations, you're thinking about the compliance team, you're thinking about the IT or the technology department. All of those functions have different priorities, They have different priorities. Finance will optimize for cost. Operational guys will optimize for speed. Compliance guys will optimize for regulation, whatever the law is saying, right? And so you have different functions essentially conflicting or running at different directions, right? And so it's important to do an alignment, an orchestration to be able to govern that entire process early on, so you're not optimizing for the wrong thing when you're implementing AI within the organization, right? So then those conversations need to happen. And in the absence of governance and in the absence of a clear orchestration strategy around implementation of any AI tool, those gaps start to bubble up. The other one would be if something goes wrong within the organization when you implement, say an agent, for example, who is to blame? Whom will you blame, right? Maybe this agent has been implemented within a factory setting. And in that factory setting, the machines were supposed to run the factory and push out, I don't know, 10 or 20 different big products. Something happens, an accident happens because the machines basically misbehaved. Do you blame the agent for that? Do you blame the worker who made the decision of not actually coming into the picture and deciding for the machine? Do you blame management for having roll out that agent within the factory setting? Do you blame the person who, at the back of it, the LLM company that is running behind the scenes? There's accountability conversations that need to happen in that regard. And when a decision has been made, ownership needs to be taken, accountability needs to be taken, and someone needs to be able to come in to approve something, for example, right? And all of that works within the framework of governance, all of that works within a clear orchestration. So in the absence of governance and some strategy around orchestration, all of these problems will happen down the road. The question is, how can you as an enterprise prevent these problems from happening? Is essentially to think about, before implementing anything, to have a governance structure around it and to be able to answer these difficult questions before even engaging or starting that entire project.
Right. And also, given that the stakes are so high, somewhere or the other, that conversation around the readiness also comes into play. That are your employees ready for this level of commitment and this level of AI
Exactly.
as well? Right. And I think that, Roop, so what are your thoughts around this, right? If you're, for example, let's take a scenario of, you are designing an enterprise AI, right? For whichever industry, but from the first principles, just starting off, what would you exclude entirely? Because here we're talking about, the area of ethics, the area of the fact that the employee should be ready. What all would you exclude that people are doing right now, in the starting principles, and what people should, start thinking about from right now?
I think that's a great question, Ritvi. I think the first thing, I think, from an enterprise standpoint is once you have a risk map, right, of what are because at this point, a lot of this, because we're talking about non-deterministic systems, right? We're talking about systems that still make mistakes. So rushing in to build systems on top of what is clearly an evolving paradigm still, and building something that requires very high levels of efficacy, accuracy, and reliability, especially things that are explicitly customer facing, that have communication overheads and so on, is potentially problematic, right? So I think organizations, what I tell companies, in fact, is to pick smaller problems, not pick large enterprise problems just yet. Pick smaller problems, pick things that you can handle, that where the fallout is far more manageable, and learn as these tools evolve. Because these tools are getting better, there is no question about it. But you don't want to overinvest in something where you're having to engineer around current deficiencies only to realize that in 6 months' time, those things have gone away anyway. So you want to try and pick smaller problems, chunk-sized, smaller chunks of issues that that you can realistically handle and build on, like a Lego structure, rather than picking a big pie in the sky objective and going, oh, we're going to, automate everything and become a complete agent megacorp with 4,500,000 million trillion agents, right? So I think it's important to, like, as they say, at this point with AI, going slower does not mean not doing it. Going slower means being very thoughtful about what you want to do. Going slower is the fastest way to do this at this point.
Understood. And I think that if you go slow as well, that conversation around tools and understanding those tools rather than just using them is also important. The more you use it for smaller issues, the more you'll be able to understand the quirks, because I do believe every AI has a sort of way you have to present it. And having this conversation, I saw Timothy agreeing with Roop as well. So I want to pick on that. So when you had a chat around tools as well. So when you're evaluating, an agentic AI platform, let's be, or an automation platform, what would you want leaders to prioritize in the first, let's say, 90 days, right? To get that success out. So Roop mentioned, smaller steps to sort of understand. What would your bits be about that?
Yeah, so we're now at the point of selecting a tool, and we have looked at governance as an institution. We have put the foundation in place in terms of accountability, ownership. We have managed our risks, just as Rupert has actually said. I think what is missing right before you jump into any of that stuff is essentially to ask 3 questions. And one, the process that we want to hand over to the agent, is that process well understood? So that's question number 1 an organization need to be able to address. If it's not well understood, then probably not, right? Just have clarity in terms of what that process is about. It's already optimized, it's well understood, and the organization can then hand it over to an agent. The second thing would be essentially around the inputs that go into the agent. Are those inputs structured? If they are not structured, they're ambiguous, it's not clear where the information or the data is coming from, how often it actually comes from those particular sources, why it needs to be, coming into the agent, it's impossible to be able to work in that particular context. So that would be the second one. The third one would be the outcome. Is the outcome predictable to the organization? Every time you go through that process and you have this X number of inputs, at the very end of it, are we expecting the same outcome? If those outcomes are going to be varying, then again, there's an issue there that then the organization needs to be able to sit down and think through. So for me, those 3 things need to have clarity beyond governance, preparedness, the layers, everything else that we've spoken about. Now coming to, yes, we want to be able to pick a tool, but before you pick the tool, have you had a conversation around these 3 aspects, the process, the input, and the outcome? In the absence of that, it doesn't matter which tool you pick. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's not going to work because those 3 things haven't actually checked the box.
Okay, so I think we have a very clear step-by-step about what all of the attendees here have to do, get the process right, the input right, and the output right. That's very interesting. It's always easier to have a step-by-step, being honest. And so Roop, in terms of that, just in continuation of what Timothy said, if, for example, I'm an enterprise leader, and I want to introduce agentic AI responsibly, right? What would be the first workflow you'd recommend automating? I know you're going to say AI is a very big scope, the workflows are different for the industries, but is there like a sort of specific that you think that should be automated first to also understand the tool and, the first bite chunk piece that you pick out of the problem, really?
Let me answer that in a slightly roundabout manner. So recently, I was at an event. It was a Harvard alumni event, and the dean of Harvard Business School was speaking, Professor Shrikant Dattar, and He's an inspiring human and, extremely accomplished academic and professional. But the one thing that he said really struck me. And he says, look, at Harvard Business School, we're trying to figure out how we can lead in the age of modern AI. And when we think about AI, we think about what is it that we wished we could have done. We've always wished that we could do that we've not been able to do at scale. And every time we come across scenarios where we go, yeah, I wish we could have done that, but we don't have the manpower, the resources, et cetera, and we've always hit some sort of a bottleneck. That, to us, is a marker for using this exoskeleton that we're experiencing. He didn't use the exact same words. I'm paraphrasing. And to me, that insight is magic, because it's not about what should we automate first. It really is about what are the current blockers for an explosive, extraordinary outcome for an organization, right? What are those blockers in different parts of that organization? What can be enabled there so that they can grow a bit faster? They can. So it's not a reductive view. It's about where can we unlock some level of exponentialism, right? Every organization has pet peeves. It could simply be document management at some layer. It could be driving operational efficiency in certain ways so that it frees up my sales and marketing group to be more present. Whatever those situations are, it is always about augmentation. That then, like, what is that wish list of augmentation that then speaks to an artificial intelligence enabled use case that then goes back to how you operationalize is you might use agents, you might automate something, you might use a mix of traditional software and AI agents and so on to automate something. But really the answer comes from that wondering of what is it that we've always wanted to do that we've not been able to, and can we construct something around that premise?
I think that one of the key takeaways, at least for me from this webinar, is going to be how we need to stop looking at AI as just a way to get things done quickly. I think that is a problem that everybody feels. And somewhere or the other, we have to put in the creativity and solve actual blockers out there and take the right steps to create those blockers. So I think that is a great chunk to share with us as well. Thank you for that, Roop. And in the same line, Timothy, have you seen any, agent-driven automation deliver very clear advantages over traditional workflow engines or repetitive enterprise environments, because it is of course very easy to say that, okay, this is the traditional workflow that we've been doing for years, but dropping that blocker and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do and use AI for the right ways, is there something that you saw in your experience? Would love to know.
Yeah, most def, and I'll just pick from just what Rupert said. I like the analogy that AI and automation is an added exoskeleton, right? And it's we're not changing who we are, but we're building additional capabilities on top of what we already can do, and that essentially means that you can do more because of this tool that has been sort of packaged around you. So when I engage with an organization that has a use case for AI, I usually ask them just one question: are you looking at this from a demo perspective, right? And if they say yes, then I understand that the pain is not painful enough for them to be able to leverage the agent or the AI tool or whatever the case might be, because they're still thinking about it as a demo. Meaning, it's not the pain that will move them from made a decision to automate this using AI, and then shoot it all the way to production. Demos are good, POCs are nice. It's the right way to basically approach this. But at the leadership level, is that painful enough that they are not just happy with a demo? They are looking at this thing going all the way to production from day one, right? It doesn't mean they're going to skip all these steps of doing a POC and testing it and all of that. But the pain is so much at the enterprise level that they understand that this thing is going to go to production from day one, right? That already tells me that they have a very lovely use case that can be automated. So usually that's the decision maker. And so if you believe responding to emails because you have 1,000 or 3,000 emails from your customers coming in, and there is no enough staff sitting in front of your computer to be able to respond to 3,000 emails on a daily basis, that's a pain, right? Because you have 10 people, you have 3,000 emails coming in daily at the call center, help desk, whatever the case might be. The questions that they're asking are the same. They are asking usually maybe about 10 similar things, right? And the responses are always going to be the same for those questions that are being asked. Once in a while, you'll have 2 or 3 questions that would ask something completely out of your FAQ. And so when you have human beings continually try to catch up to respond to 3,000 emails, that's a pain point, right? And they're not doing the best work that they could with the 10 people. And so therefore, they're thinking about how can we have an agent come in to be able to automatically respond to these emails based on the keywords and check against an FAQ database and be able to address the 3,000 emails. It takes them maybe 2 weeks to go through 3,000 emails, but every day you have 3,000 emails coming in. So they're never really catching up. They would have to increase their staff from 10 to almost 1,000 just to be able to respond to 3,000 emails on a daily basis. That's not going to be possible. There's no way they're going to scale that fast. So by default, that is a very big pain that they have in the organization. And so bringing in an agent to be able to do that just makes it, for me, right, when you think about the magnitude of the pain and the fact that while we are doing a POC for this organization, this thing is going to production from day one. Like the conversation about taking it to production is already clear from day one. Those are the ones that win. But for those who are like thinking, no, we're just testing it out. We will put it in a demo. It sits there for 3 months. We don't see the value from day one. It stays there. The POC goes on for 6 months. Clearly, the use case was not the right use case for the agent, and if you did the initial discovery, you would automatically know that this one was not. And so that could have been killed right there before actually rolling out and having to stretch the POC for that long. So it's really about the magnitude of the pain for the organization for that particular use case. How big is this pain for that organization? If it's really, really big and mighty, then probably the answer there is that you pull in an agent, and normally that would go beyond the POC and it will go straight into production. In those instances, organizations that have come in with use cases like that, they have actually succeeded in rolling out agents within that institution.
Great. That sounds, yes, Roop.
Now I was going to say, I have a hard stop. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to jump off. Please, reach out to Rithvi, because I'm going to miss some of that Q&A that I would have loved to be a part of. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, send me some questions. Please reach out to Rithvi, and Rithvi, please pass on any questions that you think will be relevant to me to address. I'm more than happy to take the time to do that. But again, lovely to meet you all. I look forward to getting to know some of you over LinkedIn and beyond. Thank you again. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Roop. You were truly amazing, and it was lovely to get a chunk of your brain for this 1 hour. It was truly a pleasure, and hopefully we'll send in more questions for you. And yes, thank you so much for joining in. Have a good
Please,
day ahead.
thank you so much. Lovely to meet you, Timothy, as well. Great. Thank you. Bye.
So right before the Q&A, we have a very good insight with Timothy, by the way, that all the salespeople should not be using the usual keywords. You are getting filtered out through the agents. But I think that this is a good segue into the Q&A. Of course, as Roop mentioned, if you have any questions specifically for him, please do put them in the chat. I will ask him to reply to them as well. But any questions for Timothy are very much welcome. Please put them in the chat and we can have the Q&A session um, soon. But before that, I would like to take 10 minutes of your time and just talk a little bit more about what is important, right? So we've talked about, we have the LinkedIn as well of Timothy. Please do not look over that. It'll be great to connect and send questions there as well. Thank you for doing that, Timothy. Um, Okay, so we have already talked throughout this webinar around why automation is quite important. Now, let's turn that conversation into action. What I would love to do is have a very short demo for Agent Spec, and we'd like to share what Agent Spec is. Agent Spec is the proposition for Cloudplex, so it's an agentic AI, and it provides a standardized way to define, integrate, and orchestrate AI agents so that they would work seamlessly with the existing tools, data, and workflows that we had, which is something that Timothy as well as Roop talked about, layering that AI on top of your existing organization to make sure that it's a good fit for you as well. So what is different, right? It makes it easy to adopt. Agent Select is very easy to adopt without disrupting the current operations of the company and without introducing new security boundaries, as we understand how important the security aspect is for enterprises as well. So by operating natively within a company's existing environment, Agent Spec ensures that the data stays where it already lives and helps address the security and the compliance concerns of any company. Now, because AgentSpec is quite flexible and industry agnostic, the demo that you are about to see applies to virtually every workflow that there is. It is a very practical look on how agentic AI moves from concept to execution, which is what this webinar was about as well, and how it can start delivering value immediately. I would love to hand it over to Chimzi, who is our talented senior engineer who's working on Agent Spec. Chimzi, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Chimeze, and I'll be taking you on a short demo. Everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So, Agent Spec, as she's talked about, is an agent that helps you automate your workflows. As Rup was talking about, usual usual steps that take you like 10 to 20 steps. Agent Spec reduces that steps and automates it for you. And here to create an agent, you can just is as easy as spinning it up with a prompt. Just tell the agent what you want it to do, and it goes ahead and do it for you. Here for this short demo, I'll just be using this workflow that I created. So here I prompted it saying, create an agent that analyzes financial performance spreadsheet, identify trends on the underperforming areas, etc., and explain the results in simple terms. Right, and after the report, after the final report, send the report to my email, and I attached it. Now, AgentSpec can also go forward to that to the point that it connects. Okay, let's say you have this financial report in your email, you have it in your Google Drive, wherever you have it. AgentSpec can easily connect to that and do it for you. But since we have the attachment, we attached it here, and then here it asks which of the tools you want me to connect to use this workflow. Since I wanted to send a PDF to my Gmail, I specified PDF. There's no need for Google Drive for this demo. And it asks which email should receive the final report. And since I've connected my email, I said, okay, use my connected email. And then AgentSpec went ahead and gave an overview of what this agent will do for us. It will download the Excel file because this thing I provided, the document I provided is an Excel file, extract it, analyze, and send the email. And here after that, I decided to test it out before deploying. And I said, okay, proceed. And AgentSpec went ahead and proceeded to this. And if you check if I check my mail, I see that I get the financial report with the PDF that I want. So this is just a one use case that AgentSpec can do. AgentSpec, okay. So another use case is let's say you have you continuously receive emails about financial reports. You can send you can create a workflow that gets all your emails, check if it's a financial report, and then summarize it for you. Now, for example, this is one that I created. I said create an agent that listens to any unread email, incoming email that I've received. If it's a financial report, get it, summarize it, and then put it in the Google Docs. Since AgentSpec can connect to over 2,000 tools, AgentSpec went ahead, and since I've connected to Gmail, AgentSpec asked me to connect to Google Docs, and after doing that, it created a workflow, and here it is with the Google Docs that it created. So these are just few of the use cases that AgentSpec can do, and if you're skeptical of the fact that AgentSpec listens to your email address, and also you can deploy it, and once you deploy it, it becomes autonomous, right? Meaning that now that this workflow listens to every email, when you deploy it, you can just go home and do whatever you want. Now, whenever you get any incoming email, AgentSpec checks, is this a financial report? If it is, it downloads the financial report, summarizes it, and then press the Google Docs for you. Here in our integrations part, you see that AgentSpec connected to two different tools, which is Google Docs and Gmail, right? So, and here you see that it is active. So if you are skeptical of the fact that AgentSpec is constantly listening to your tool, you can go ahead and disconnect it, and AgentSpec will no longer listen to it. And there are so many tools from Microsoft to Excel to spreadsheets to linear, whatever tool you want AgentSpec to listen to, AgentSpec listens to that, creates the agent. And if you see here below, we specify that you should be specific about the task you want this agent to perform, when it should run, because AgentSpec can also work based on schedule. So you can create an agent that listens once a week, once every 2 days. Just, AgentSpec capabilities are boundless. So yeah, that's just a short demo of what AgentSpec can do. Thank you, Rishi.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. I think that it was very short, crisp, and was able to very easily specify around what AgentSpec can do. I have started a question in the chat as well. So if you are watching this and you can think about your own organization, we would love to help and automate any of the use cases or any ways in which we can show you how to automate your businesses. Drop your ideas in the chat or in the prompt that I've just started, whether it's operations, customer support, finance, IT, or something else entirely. We will be able to make a demo for it for you and show you what all other possibilities, which is something which will be very helpful for you as well as for us. So that is that. I think I would love for Timothy to just jump right in. I did ask for all of you to add in your questions in the chat. I hope you have. If you haven't, this is the time to ask Timothy Laku any questions that you have. Please feel free to add them in the messaging. Okay, we have a very long message by Meshach. Thank you so much for your question. I'll just read it out, Roy. I'm Mishak Dawa, a Columbia University alum and a full stack developer currently running a youth-led non-profit in Kenya, EDB Foundation. I'm building I'm sorry, it just zoomed in on me. Sorry. I am building Nonagra, a vertical AI agent specifically designed to solve the discovery and alignment gap in the social impact sector. It acts as a chief and staff for nonprofits and startups, ingesting their mission data and to provide the perfect SDG aligned grants while providing grant writers with a workspace to manage client portfolios and generate strategic outreach scripts. From your experience, Timothy, do you think an agent that moves beyond search into strategic advisory truly solves the core pain for founders and writers? Also, given the technical complexity of grant compliance, what is one feature you would prioritize for an MVP to ensure high trust?
Yeah, so so definitely. First of all, I think what he's building is amazing, and I have been in the impact space for some time, so I completely understand the the implication of a tool like that, right? And so one, to answer his question, yes, building a platform where if I was starting an NGO tomorrow, a social impact organization tomorrow, I will not have to hire 6 people to answer the questions that this tool is basically going to answer for me. One, this is my cause. This is what my social impact organization is about. Where can I go to get funding, right? When I plug it into the system, I put in all those keywords as that describes my organization, and here comes a list of all these organizations and the causes that are aligned with what it is that I'm doing. And so it just cuts down the time of research. This could have taken me a month. And if I'm new in the impact space and I'm not coming from a funding background, fundraising background, development background, I obviously do not have those tools or those connections to be able to then know where to go. So essentially, this has cut a 1 month, 3 people exercise of research down to literally days to be able to go from this is the thing that I'm working on. These are the various organizations that fund something similar, and then I'm able to reach out to them. So yes, definitely that tool has a place in the social impact sector, and it's going to add a lot of value. Feature for me, as far as trust is concerned, is just visibility, right? The one thing about AI where trust comes into the forefront is because it's usually a black box. We don't know what's happening in the back end. Some decisions are being made. You get a list of organizations that I can start to reach out to for grant funding, right? That entire process of how it actually works, if that is made more visible to the social impact organization or founder, it would allow that person to be able to now trust this tool more, right? So just visibility into the way it actually works, so that then there's that human component. If you think about it, that's how human beings work, right? The way that I trust you is I engage with you, I see you act on a few things that I've given you to do, and your response time and how you do it. I'm actually observing all of that in order for me to make that decision that I actually trust you. But if you disappeared and then came back with a solution, I'd be like, wait, what did you actually do, right? You have no idea what that happened, how that actually happened. So trust is built in surfacing the process, make it more visible, right? By no, what's the word? Without any doubt, right? This tool will do what it needs to do. But in order for you to build that trust, you can start to show the person who's watching it work, the thinking behind and the decision making around it, and some of the constraints that it had to go through. And when I'm able to observe that, I'm able to trust that system more. I think going from a black box to something more sub-visible will essentially connect and build that trust within. So that would be the feature I would say you'd add on to the tool.
Thank you so much, Timothy. I hope, Meshach, that answers your question. If there are any other questions, he's thanking you as well, Timothy. Is there any other question that anybody else would like to put in the chat? Till somebody else asks this, Timothy, I had a question for you. I was wondering, when you're incorporating AI into these businesses, when there's so much impact to be made, as well as it's sort of a high risk, high reward kind of a situation for a lot of enterprises, what sort of ethical complexities do you have to keep in mind while doing that? Because of course there'll be people who will be, on the other side of the screen as well, rather than an AI. So that is something that I wonder about and would love your thoughts on as well.
So that's a very good question. I love it, and it's a conversation that needs to be paired with governance, and you've got to be able to think about the ethical aspect or the consequences of having to automate this, right? In a call center, if someone calls in and a human being gives a response that resulted in you losing a big account, the human that made that call essentially is the one who's going to be held accountable for that decision. If you place a tool in between, whom do you blame? Do you blame the person who prompted, the person who built the LLM? Whom do you blame in that? Right. So hence the ethical conversation. Another example I gave is in a hospital setup, a doctor is working together with an AI agent. And so a patient walks in, they're having a conversation. The AI agent is transcribing the conversation of the doctor and the patient. So the doctor doesn't have to type on the computer everything that the patient is actually mentioning. And so the AI agent is picking what is important to be able to come to a diagnostic about what the patient could be suffering from. It's saving the doctor's hours, right? The doctor is seeing one patient an hour, maybe two patients an hour for a day. You multiply that by the number of patients that they have to see on a daily basis in a week. That's a lot of typing that they have to keep doing. So the agent adds value in saving the time. But what if the agent doesn't pick the right data to be able to then lead to the diagnostic? And so, like the example I gave, given everything that has been, ingested by the agent says that the patient is suffering from cancer, and the patient is not suffering from cancer, right? And then they start treatment on cancer, right, to treat cancer. But and then obviously 6 months later, you realize that indeed we could have done this a bit differently, and the patient wasn't. Whom do you blame in that regard? Do you blame the doctor for not paying attention? Do you blame the doctor for trusting the agent for picking and saving the time, right? Do you blame the hospital management for having to decide that we need an agent to work in augmented format with the doctor, right? So those are all ethical decisions. If you think about the financial sector as well in the banks, think about credit and how we access credit from a bank, right? You apply, you fill in your details, buy your data, history, and all of that. So the bank is using your data, including your transactions, to be able to make a decision whether they should actually give you the loan, right? We've seen, because a lot of the people who apply for loans are men, more men are actually granted loans when it goes through an AI system than women. It doesn't mean that the women are not qualified to access the loan. It just means that the data set is skewed towards men and not necessarily towards women. And so more women get rejected when they have to be filtered through a credit scoring system. Those are ethical concerns that the bank will have a conversation around them before actually allowing credit scoring systems to be integrated within their workflows. So it's definitely important, and it does depend with the sector. So again, the way that conversation happens in hospitals is different from banks. It does depend with the sector, but that conversation needs to happen.
Definitely. And I was very rattled when I heard about that case. I remember reading about it and thinking of AI bias. And I was quite shocked because then that's the human error part of it, which AI was supposed to cover, is essentially not getting covered. So yeah, that was kind of strange. But yeah, if anybody else has any other questions, please put them in the chat. But I think that this is sort of if we get another question in the next 5 minutes, I'm gonna definitely push it on to you. But I do think that this was a very important conversation to have had because, of course, we are in the start of the year, a lot of big decisions to be made, a lot of money to be spent around. So I hope that this webinar was able to give all of the leaders in this attendee list a way to think about in the future and to really formalize the way that you're thinking about AI as well. And Timothy, as well as Roop, you guys were amazing. It was lovely hearing your thoughts about this. And thank you so much for taking out the time to do this. It means a lot for all of us, even at Cloudplex. So yes, and I think that this is the end. If somebody else has any questions. Okay, I think that that's a Agent spec question, which I would love to see. When using agent spec, is any of your company's data, prompts, outputs, logs, or metadata retained or used to train, fine tune, or otherwise improve your LLM, either by default or optionally? And will the data that is generated by the company make the LLM a little biased on those specific company data points? Thank you, Rishabh, for that question. Chimzi, are you still in the meeting? Would you like to take that? But I would like to point out the fact that this agent is deployed, it has the option to be deployed on the client's environment as well. So that means that all of the data that is stored, all of the work that is being done on from your agent's workspace, that is going to be saved only for you, and there's no fine tuning that is happening at the end of the day, because simply the use cases are so vast and the industries that are being used are so vast that we can't really fine tune it specifically to to one specific use case. But thank you so much for your question, Rishabh. I hope that answers it. Chimzi, please feel free to add on if you want to. But yes, I think, Timothy, oh, what should we not automate? Is AI going to eliminate jobs? Ah,
I,
that's such a
I
good
remember you were to
question.
ask me that one, so I just posted there so we can remember.
Yes, please, Timothy, tell us what do you think about this as well?
That's one, and then two, I think we can't end a session like this without discussing jobs. I think
Yeah.
it's important that, which is what everybody is worried about. Amazon is laying off 14,000 people, Microsoft another bunch of 10, 15,000. Like we keep hearing these cases. So one, what should you not automate? I think that's an important question. We probably know what we need to automate, but what should you not automate? So I think where the stakes are so high, but for me, we shouldn't touch that. Let humans be the one that are accountable and making those decisions. When the stakes between what can I say, life and death, that's high stake decision. For heaven's sake, don't automate that. just just have a human in the loop deal with that, right? So for me, those would be situations that, for me, that's the framework of what not to automate. It's really the cost of a mistake. A factory process that is going to, if there was an accident, cause billions of losses to the factory. Don't automate that. Think about having a human in the loop so that a human being is always making that decision. If you're just responding to emails, you might make one mistake here and there. I guess that's fine. You can always jump on a call and get clarification. So for me, it's the cost. Number two, is AI going to eliminate jobs? Very, very important conversation. So this is, again, another framework I would like everybody on the call to go back with, right? Purpose versus task. Is the thing that you're doing every day the purpose of you in that job? What is it that you being present in your role? What's that purpose? Is it really to take tasks, to complete tasks? Like, to be able to think through that. I give this example of software developers. Software developers are saying that, the tools that we're leveraging now are coming to replace what it is that they're doing. But I think when you think about it as a software developer, what exactly are you what is your responsibility and your role? You're there to solve problems for the organization. That's using coding as a tool. Your job is to solve the problems for that particular company. So you problem solving is really your purpose in the organization. It's not the coding. So the coding becomes a tool and an additional task to be able to achieve this bigger purpose, which is to problem solve, right? If you spend way more time problem solving, you probably don't need to actually do the coding. You can work with an agent that actually does the coding, right? And so then that doesn't become a risk. But if you hold the task and the responsibility of coding as your purpose within the organization, then the threat of you being replaced by vibe coding that becomes really advanced over a couple of years from now is actually higher. So I think it's a framework that we need to start to rethink. Why are we in the role that we are in these organizations that we work for? We are there to solve problems. We are there to be able to discover problems that haven't been solved yet, and then go out there and actually solve the problems. Everything else that comes in is really a tool to be able to do that. Computers came in as a tool to be able to allow us to be able to do more within our organization. Internet came and allowed us to be able to do that. Mobile technology and apps came to do that. AI is coming to do exactly the same thing, right? Our role and our purpose within the role of the organizations we work for is to solve problems. And for us to be able to continue to think in terms of what problems are we solving for the organization in our role, and then leveraging any tool that comes in to be able to allow us to do that better, that's the space where we need to actually exist and do more of. So AI is not coming to replace us when our purpose is problem solving, because AI needs context. AI needs to understand the organization better in terms of how it actually works. Human beings working in those organizations are the ones who understand the context in those organizations, not the AI. So the AI is only coming to allow you and to help you to be able to do more. And so if you're thinking in that regard, and the space and your mindset is that particular dimension, then the risk of AI replacing you goes away. But if you're basically married and tagged to the task, then unfortunately, yes, AI will replace you.
Okay, so essentially upskill and do not put your your value in the company based on tasks. You need to understand if there's a creative side to it or a strategic side to it, and contribute more to the company as well, which is a very good takeaway as well. And do you believe that just a person approving a workflow is enough to make sure that the ethical side is solved, or do you think that a person has to be involved in every step by step of that AI? Because that's why
So
the agentic AI is having all of the rage, right? Because it's doing the execution.
exactly. And remember when we had this conversation earlier, is your process understood? Are the inputs clear in terms of what goes into it? Is the outcome, is that outcome consistent? So if you tick those three boxes, you definitely don't need a human in the loop. What you need a human in the loop for is to just check for QC purposes, just quality control, just to make sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to go, right? But the system should be able to do that much better. The reason why we keep jumping in to make those decisions is because our process is not clear, right? The data that goes in is not structured or breaks somewhere at some stage of that process, and the outcome is not consistent. When those three things are not ticked, so human beings keep jumping in to be able to make those decisions because of that. And that's already a mistake. So that having to build an agent for that sort of process for me is a mistake from day one, right? Because it hasn't checked all those three boxes. But once it does, human in the loop is really essentially for QC purposes, quality control, just to make sure that I can sample a few of those decisions and see, has the outcome still remain consistent? Is the data still structured? Is the process still the same? It hasn't actually changed, just to confirm that that QC is okay. And because the outcome is consistent, and all of these other things are checking, well, I can stay away from that and let this thing actually do its job.
Okay. Thank you for doing that. And just like an ending to all of the conversations that have happened today, I feel like this is important to finish off the webinar. Firstly, AI is not a bubble. You need to get on top of it. You need to take steps. You need to not go according to tools rather than see what is the end value you want to get out of the AI and then see what all are the steps that you have to do in the process. Use the right data, use the right prompt. Don't get biased data. It's not going to work out then. Make sure that you're automating things that can be automated, that don't have very high impacts, don't have a lot of costs attached to it. AI is not a replacement for workforce. You need to add on AI as a sort of a skill set to the workflow rather than just replacing people, essentially. You need to understand that AI is a more of a means to an end, and if there are blockers, try to solve that with AI. I think that I'm missing out on a lot of things, but that is why we have this session recorded. If you have any questions whatsoever, Timothy is here. He's given you his LinkedIn as well. I'll put that in the chat again, as well as Roop's LinkedIn. And I am available as well. You have my email as well. But it was so lovely to have all of you in this conversation. Thank you so much, Timothy, for these inputs as well. They are honestly, the step-by-step, the 3 steps was honestly amazing. I do think I'm going to refer back to them quite a lot. But yes, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. I hope it was as exciting for you as it was for me. And I truly enjoyed this conversation. I hope that that was visible. But thank you, Timothy. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, let's chat soon and let's be in contact. And we will let you know about more events. We keep on doing these. We'll be doing one in a few weeks' time, as well as a tech event that is coming up, a very big tech event in which Timothy will be there. I can assure you. So thank you so much. Have a very good day ahead, and thank you for your time. Bye-bye. Have a very good day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ridley.